We're in the
Yes.
event.
This is our first podcast, so thank you for your patience. Of course, I wanted to do the first podcast in the new book in the group, of course. So here we are. So we're, a little bit green at this, but Roman is a technical genius. So here we are.
No, I'm not. Okay, since we are live, hello, do not harmers, and welcome to your Do Not Harm show. So we have a special guest here. And before we go to the special guest, I'm going to introduce my co-host, um, dear friend, Catherine Porter. So a little bit about me first. I'm Roman with Holistic Dog Training, and I'm certified back dog trainer and holistic behavior consultant and Reiki master, blah, blah, blah. I guide dog parents and professionals via video conference call to solve even the most complex dog behavior challenges. I use body, mind, spirit approach, trauma-informed, secure attachment-based, and force-free training approach to get results. I'm a firm believer in educating pet professionals and handlers, caregivers, and the public about the do not harm principles. That goes with our guest. And I'm an expert moderator of the Do Not Harm Dog Training Facebook group. And my co-host and dear friend and colleague, Catherine Porter. She's a certified Canon behavior consultant, and she is a KA. Wow, man, I got stuck. And she's a professional coach, inspired body, dog, mind, spirit approach. She guides people into deepening a connection with themselves so they can have a loving relationship with others, including their companion animals. Catherine is a pet professional guild member and pet dog ambassador, instructor, and assessor, educator on dog experience, fear, and aggression, and is an expert moderator for the Do Not Harm Dog Training Facebook group. So don't forget to check in with her website, 4pawsandyourdogtraining.com, and at our 4paws and Your Dog Training Facebook page. So, Catherine, welcome.
Hi, Roman.
So, what's up?
I'm so happy to be here. This is an exciting time for the dog training industry and for pet parents to professionals within the industry itself to learn more about do no harm approaches and why it's so important for the relationship and for the animals that are in our care. So I'm so excited for Linda to share more today.
So tell us a bit about Linda. She's our guest today. Let's introduce Linda a little bit.
Hi, Roman. Well, I just published the book that I'd been working on for almost 7 years. And I'm thrilled to say that I'm proud of it. I'm sort of a perfectionist, weirdo, nerd, and it had to be like just so. And it turned out better than I expected, to be honest. Um, I'm the founder of the Do No Harm group. Uh, I am the creator of the Hierarchy of Dog Needs, and I am a proud professional member of the Pet Professional Guild, and I'm certified with them. As well as I have experience working with wolf dogs. I was the first behavior advisor for the Wolf Dog Sanctuary, and I've also worked with the Belayev research foxes. Um, and I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to change the dog training industry. And so I want to tell you about why I wrote the book and some of the things that I feel are most important in the book. So, well, let me tell you about why I wrote the book.
Yeah, I was about to. I'm listening. Every time you start talking, it's so important. So I'm kind of listening, and all of a sudden, like, oh, wait a minute, I have a couple of questions. And go, tell us, how do you get to write this book?
Okay, well, why I wrote it. Number one, to increase the efficiency. the force-free training community's efficiency in making the case for force-free dog training. That was the name of a seminar presentation I did at the inaugural Pet Professional Guild Summit. And frankly, I wish someone had written this book for me, because over the years, I have had such difficulty pouring through books and narratives, searching for concise information on topics that I wanted to write an article for example, for the dog training columns that I've had. Perhaps there was a debate going on Facebook, and I wanted to be able to argue my point, but I needed something solid. I needed that scientific evidence to write a blog. You know, who are the classic researchers in that area? What does the contemporary research say? So I wanted to include these things to make presentations easy, and of course along the way to figure out if what I was feeling was true. And and I have discovered that we are on the right side, no doubt about it. So I have included in the book 23 pages of index to make it easy for readers to find what they're looking for, so they don't have to go through the frustration that I went through. And this will give a foundation, you know, if you're interested in, you know, putting something together pretty quickly, and then you can follow the trails of the research. Like, okay, so the Pavlov wrote that and that and that, and like, where does that lead? You know, so also, I mean, with my credentials, my academic credentials and my experience, I felt a responsibility to write this book. I felt a responsibility to make a contribution to the field of animal welfare, because I feel so strongly about the do no harm principle in dog training. And the second reason, or actually this is the primary reason that I wrote the book, is because the need is so great. The need is so great in so many areas of dog caretaking and training. You know, wherever humans cross the paths of dogs or purport to serve them, I mean, if there are often problems. So, you know, if we look at dog training, if we look at veterinary care, grooming care, what's going on with rescues, inbreeding, well, you know what we may find. So I wrote the book to try to help stop animal abuse masquerading as dog training. I would like to read you the dedication from the book, if I may. It's written to our passionate and unfailingly devoted force-free dog trainers, to pet professionals and pet parents who have worked so hard to meet the challenge of the day to make this a better world for our dogs. And I often cry when I read this, so please excuse me. I think I've practiced enough that I won't cry, but I might. So we tried to look away, but couldn't. We saw the frightened, emotionally abandoned dogs who had been shocked, choked, pronged, and beaten down, some by cruelty and some with domination in the name of training. And in their eyes, we saw bewilderment, fear, excuse me. So, you know, these words are spoken from the heart, and an unspeakable sadness. We felt a deep sense of helplessness and cried out to the universe, God, why don't you do something? And God responded, reminding us, I did do something. I sent you and you and you. And that's why I wrote the book. And I just want to thank Nikki Tudge, who endorsed the book, the founder of the Pet Professional Guild, for mentioning that the dedication in the book kind of says it all. So I invite you to go to Amazon, where you can easily use that great feature they have, the look inside. And they've published the whole table of contents there. You can see what's in the book. And you can also read the Amazon reviews, which also made me cry, but cry with joy at the reviews, because as an author, you never know if what you've put together and written is going to hit the mark or not. You don't know if you're going to reach the audience that you wanted to reach, if the book is going to work, so getting that feedback in the reviews was just very inspiring to me, and it's given me the courage to go on and market the book. So in the book there are roadmaps. I've tried to make it easy. So there's a treatment plan for aggression, and probably the aggression section is the thickest section in the book, covering all different types of aggression and reactivity. There's also a treatment plan, a thorough treatment plan for separation anxiety. These are a couple of the two big areas where lots of trainers and pet parents are having difficulty. So the book is available as a paperback on Amazon and also as an ebook. And I'm thrilled to say that it has already been an Amazon bestseller on the bestseller list. And it was on the hot new release list for weeks. So it's also available from Dogwise. And very importantly, it's available wholesale through Ingram Spark. That's the publisher that deals to bookstores, libraries, and universities. So you could go into your local bookstore and show them your copy and ask them to carry it. So that was very important to me, that it be widely available. If it turned out the way that I hoped that it had, and it more or less has. So the book quotes many do no harm ethical codes. The first do no harm ethical code, that, and this is all quoted in the book from the American Veterinary Medical Association, the do no harm code from the American Animal Hospital Association, the do no harm code from the American Medical Association, the do no harm code from the American Psychological Association. And any organization or industry that deals with sentient creatures has a do no harm ethical code. So we need an ethical code in the dog training industry. That's what we need. I would like to, I know this isn't a book reading, but I mean, I've tried to put some really important information in, oh goodness, oh, in the book that you can easily find. And this is something that I came across that I thought, oh, that says it. It's a quote by a researcher, Joseph Ledoux. And Ledoux is a renowned neuroscientist whose research focused on survival circuits in the brain. Yeah, and especially the survival circuits' impact on fear. So Ledoux says, we'll start with the simple behavior that we use when we study all of this, and that is Pavlovian fear conditioning. So a rat is placed in a small chamber, and the rat hears a sound. If nothing happens, the rat begins to ignore the sound. And that's what we call habituation in psychology. But if the sound is paired with electric shock, and you only have to do this one time, he says, then the rat develops a fear of the sound because it predicts the electric shock. And this becomes a lifelong fear. As long as you present the sound to the rat again, as long as the rat lives, The rat will be afraid of the sound unless you've done something during the rat's life to weaken that stimulus. But even if you weaken that stimulus through, for example, extinction processes, the fear always comes back. The fear is almost more or less permanent and is characteristic of the animal for the rest of its life in one way or another. So, given that we can't play around with shock, you can't try it, see if it works on your dog, and then decide, oh, I don't like that. I want to like try something, more progressive. And this applies to any fear that we develop. They're deep set in the brain. So it's important that we have things like this research from Joseph Ledoux at our fingertips so that we can win this battle. And we can, because the scientific literature is definitely on our side. So I know you're interested in things that may cause harm to dogs, Roman.
Yeah, correct. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your emotional side, like being vulnerable. And I think it's important as a behavior specialist to be vulnerable, because that will help also being empathetic with the animals, but also share your own experience. And I appreciate that you were able to transform your traumatic experience in shelters and, working with wolves and working with people, and give these answers that you had back in time, and says, okay, now I can answer all my questions. Here's my book. I answered my own questions and I found out the resources, how I can answer my questions. And so I appreciate you for that. Also, I want to say hello to all our dear do not harmers from California. I see people from Athens, Greece. Kalisperas, Nathina. I see also for North Carolina. Where are you guys watching from? How about you guys check in with us a little bit? Meanwhile, yeah, you're very correct. As a complex trauma survivor myself, it was very sensitive to me to understand trauma and what got me to the place that I am. And I have to admit, just like some of us, we started kind of in a wrong directions with dog training. My approach was definitely beyond balance training. I was more a compulsive trainer because I recreated my own trauma. I thought I have to treat animals like I was treated before because that's how you get control. And then it was a wake-up call later on when I got bit by a dog, and I recognized that I behaved towards my dog as my parents directed towards me. And that was kind of my turning point. I was like, I cannot recreate what I hate. I have actually to start loving it. And I start using my trauma basically into my superpower. And just like you did. And I think it was also a clear point that you can do a damage to your dog, having him trying to survive with your actions, and the dog will always try to survive. So his internal body system wants to survive, and he will remember everything that puts his life in threat. Like, how many times do you need to figure out that a knife will hurt you if you cut yourself? Once. And how long will it take you to trust that knife again? Right? How many times we had a relationship and that didn't go right, and how many times we said, I'd never ever again do that. And it takes so long time to find ourselves again and love ourselves again in order to do what we want to do. So with dog training, and I think we have to be conscious, and no matter what our inner, ego tells us, and try to excuse and justify the actions that we do towards the dogs, we need to find the real truth in it. Like, what is really doing to my dog? Why do I have to make that dog feel that way? And if the dog is not happy what I'm doing, why do I continue doing this? And I feel like we're coming so much from a control perspective, try to control bad behavior because we think bad behavior has to be punished because we were punished for bad behaviors, and we're just perpetuating this idea. And you come out with your book and says, whoa, wait a minute, this is different. You have needs, and your actions is because you want to fulfill your needs. What are your needs? And that was my first question. What are my needs? Because I always been pushed into needs that weren't mine, but it was other people's needs that I had to comply. And I never had my own needs met. And so I was literally living consistently in fear and discomfort until one day I said, where do I want my things to be? I was finally able to make a particular choice, and I had a hard time making that choice. And so seeing how training evolves into controlling the dog not having choices, while dogs in nature have a lot of choices, we put the dogs in this confined place with no choices and totally lack of confidence, and we expect them to function. So really thank you for that book, because it helped me actually read how I felt back then when things happened to me. I'm a human, but that book is a dog book about dogs and how these things connect to each other, that emotions for people also comply and are similar to emotions of dogs in a very simple level. And so again, thank you for that.
Yeah, Raman, I just want to touch on that because I think what you mentioned about the connection of identifying what someone's needs are, if they are not aware of their own needs, they are having a harder time identifying what their dog's needs. And so it's so important for people to recognize what they value and what they need emotionally so they can have that connection with their dog that's in their life. And so I just wanted to touch on that because I think also that goes into choosing another professional, right? You understand, like dog trainers, we want them to be on the same line of where we value keeping our dogs safe so they can thrive. But Linda also touched on how to choose a good veterinarian and also a good groomer. And I'm curious, Linda, about how you weave those values and how to connect the person, the pet parent, who has to make those connections with those other pet professionals.
Right. Well, you know, choosing not only a dog trainer, but even moreover, a good veterinarian, a kind veterinarian, and well-informed veterinarian, and choosing a fear-free groomer who are rare, but they're becoming more. I have a friend who has written a book that I recommend, and this is happening, and it is critical. Choosing a good veterinarian, choosing a good groomer, and choosing a good dog trainer are, I would say, the most important decisions you can make for your dog. These experiences that your dog has have serious and long lasting effects. So, because they're the first contact with strangers, and the relationship with the veterinarian sets the stage for lifelong relationships. It starts there. So, behavior problems with strangers or the veterinarian can start there. Also, breeders, for example, when we look at the critical or the sensitive period of socialization starting at 4 weeks. I mean, the pet parent doesn't get a puppy if they do uh, purchase from a breeder until 8 weeks old, hopefully at the earliest. And by that time, the puppy has already learned a great deal about the world, about people, about other dogs. So, the power and the responsibility that breeders have as well is so important. So, we want to look for fear free and force free handling and restraint techniques in veterinary practices. And by the way, Dr. Karen Overall, one of our heroes, and the chief editor of the Journal of Veterinary Behavior wrote, and by the way, she's a veterinarian and has a PhD in animal behavior. She wrote an article called Good Trainers, How to Identify One. She wrote this for veterinarians. It's I have a block quote in my book. She states clearly, and this was written in 2006, 16 years ago, tools to avoid shock collars, prong collars, correction collars, and choke collars. It's clear. So this is nothing new. We just need to catch up in the dog training industry.
I understand and I really appreciate that. And I think it's important for us to recognize that these are important pieces of the dog training industry. My question, are we going to win this battle against those, I wouldn't call it negative forces, stupid, but I would say, can we take and support people to think and have this paradigm shift?
Let me say, if I may, that I am really thrilled and delighted to say that I have just been recently inspired to think that we are going to win. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a tough battle, and we need everyone to do their part. But the reasons I think that we're going to win, recent developments are these. Well, the advent of the Pet Professional Guild. I was around before there was a PPG, and it was very disheartening. It was sad. There was no home base. There was no force-free organization to land on or to point to. So the PPG defining force-free training, and I define force-free training in the book because people are confused about and ask and naysayers say, oh, there's no such thing. Well, it's operationally defined, as all scientific terms are operationally defined, so that we have common ground on which to discuss subjects. So I think we're going to win, though, because of three things today. And by the way, I had sent my book to the designer, and when the AVSAB came out with the position statement on humane dog training, I thought, oh my God, oh, this is groundbreaking. That's got to be in the book. So,
Hold the print.
and it was so embarrassing. Because they're like, this is it. I'm like, yeah, this is it. And I'm like, no, that wasn't it. I have it completely signed. But as imperative, the importance of the AVSAB statement, although it's not a regulation or a law, it carries weight. And we have that now. Let me just read because it's in the book. This is the one part of their statement that I felt I wanted to share in this podcast. There are other quotes in the book, but they say an appropriate trainer should avoid any use of training tools that involve pain, choke chains, prong collars, or electric shock collars, intimidation, squirt bottles, shakers, noise cans, compressed air cans, shouting, staring, or forceful manipulation, such as alpha rolls or dominance downs. Physical correction techniques, such as leash jerking, physical force, or flooding exposure. The learner must always feel safe and have the ability to opt out of training sessions. Okay.
And it comes, sorry to interrupt you, it comes back to the first thing that you said before, that one negative experience can damage A, the relationship with your dog, and B, how the dog thinks about the event. Only one.
Exactly. It's called one trial learning. And in research, and I have conducted research in a laboratory in behavioral neurobiology. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, I have a master's degree in
Ah,
experience.
yeah, by the way.
Yeah, so I do, and so we call it one trial learning in research. It's like well known, and it's a common phenomena, and we understand the mechanisms by which it works in the brain. So yes, all of these things, Roman, they tie together. That's the beauty of the book and what we're all doing, because it all works together. It's like we've solved a Rubik's cube. And another important uh, uh, inspiration for me recently that has given me hope is the APDT taking a stand. The APDT has taken a no shock, no prong, no choke stand, from what I understand. So it is our great hope that because the APDT appears to be the driving force behind the licensing legislation that's on the table, that the licensing will be and must be, in my opinion, embedded with an ethical code, starting with the new APDT stand. No shock, no prong, no choke. And, we add no dominance, no pain, used to train pet dogs or to train any dog for that matter. And also, thirdly, the reason that we can win and that we're going to win through a tough battle is because the literature is on our side. The scientific evidence is there. And that is why I have included 18 pages of citations in my book, APA citations peppered throughout the book, so that this is not all about what Linda thinks or what Linda says. I mean, it is, but I could back up what I'm saying with research. And you can go look at it and you can use it. And you can take this to your presentations. You can take this to your groups. I wanted to make it easy for us. It's out there. The literature is out there. It has been out there. It's not always, being working in academia, I realized how inaccessible research is to the average person or to the average dog trainer. I mean, like, where do you get it? Like, they said, what? Why? And so I really wanted to try to make this more accessible to us because the science is on our side. Um,
Yeah, Linda, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I wanted to, I was really touched by how you were talking about the careful words that you used and the language that you incorporated in your book, because it is speaking from your heart and your experience. And even the language that we use in the Do No Harm group, we have to be very on point with that, because language is so important for giving ideas and sharing ideas, and it creates an image of where we want to go. And in your book, you carefully chose the term pet parents because I think it speaks really poignantly to the relationship that we want all people to have with their animals. So can you share a little bit about your thinking and your careful consideration for that particular piece of the language that you used?
I am so glad you asked that, and I think Roman alluded to this a bit earlier. But the term pet parent, I mean, I have been through. I don't do these things thoughtlessly or on the spur of the moment. I searched around for years trying to find a term that I liked better than owner. And you know what? I
It's a
landed
legal battle.
on
It's a legal battle whether you are an owner or a dog parent?
Well, let me support my opinion with some research, okay? So, yeah, it was a battle. I got criticized a lot, and people are like, "You have a master's degree, and you're saying pet parent?" Because researchers don't go there. Okay, but after working at the Humane Society for 5 years, on my experiences there, laying the foundation for all the work that I've done since in behavior. Um, the best term I could find was pet parent. So I decided to use that. And it turned out, luckily, unfortunately, to be the right choice because I mean, even Purina uses pet parent now in their dog food advertisements. I was like, oh my God, this is pet parents. So, um, but let's go to the research. So the functional MRI research and all this research and a whole lot more are in the book. The functional MRI research by Dr. Gregory Burns showed that the areas of the brain that light up in dogs are the same areas of the brain that light up in 2 to 3 year old children in terms of impulse control. So this is, what's that, Roman?
I'm just wondering to the group who's calling himself a pet parent.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, uh, yeah, we don't have StreamYard this time, so we don't have all the graphics.
Yeah, we need to get manual.
So, we need something to break it up. So yes, when you think that your dog has the impulse control of a 2 or 3 year old child, if you can think of your dog in that way, it really helps pet parents to become more empathic, to have more empathy toward their dogs. If they think of their dog in this way, we already call dogs part of our family. So, as a family member, you know, we don't toss them away because of behavior problems or medical problems or old age, but we provide a forever home for them. So, um, one of the big problems, and Catherine, I know you can speak to this, is pet parent expectations. This is,
Yeah.
let me just say one thing on
Yeah,
that.
and something.
I want to know, why don't we have expectations of cats as we do for dogs? We expect our dogs to walk in straight lines, to not do this normal, natural, species specific behavior, to not bark, to not complain, to be, allow us to just hug them and cuddle them even if they don't feel like it. We expect that of them a great deal, whereas people with cats just say, "Oh, well, it's a cat," more or less.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good point, Linda. And the thing that I go back to and that I think you were hinting at when we were talking about this is the idea of like a parent ideally is unconditionally loving their child. So the unconditional love of seeing their dog as an individual and having their needs. And I think when I've come across this is when a dog isn't choosing to do the things that the pet parent wants them to do, it's almost like seen as betrayal to their relationship. But in order for pet parents to see their dogs as individuals, it's coming from a place of unconditional love. And I think that place of not placing undue expectations or other things that they are deeming their dog to be able to do when maybe the dog's not ready or it's not possible for the dog to do can be so detrimental to that relationship. and the pet parent not being able to see past where their limitations are is, it just, it's detrimental. And so I love the idea of you using the word love and going back to it and operationally defining what love is, because that can open the door for people to see where they may reflect in a different way what they want from their relationship with their dog. So I just wanted to share that and ask you a little bit about how you operationally define love.
Well, I'm glad that you pointed out that unconditional love aspect of the relationship of the pet parent to their dog, hopefully. Um, I put love on the hierarchy of dog needs before I had a lot of the research to back it up, because I created the hierarchy of dog needs first, and then I wrote the book later. So,
This is how we met,
Mhm.
actually. I was like, what is that?
I get a lot of and some serious criticism from scientists about putting love on, they could automatically dismiss the hierarchy because it says dogs need love. So us loving our dogs, people, that's a given. People know that, but our dogs needing our love, it is a need. So, love being an action word, an expression of compassion, loyalty, not toss away dogs because of inconvenience. So I made the right decision including it in the hierarchy of dog needs, because now there are a lot of, of scientists that have books they've published with the word dogs and love in the title. So I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for that. Um, but let's talk a little bit about the love hormone. Oxytocin is called the love hormone, and research shows that the oxytocin system mediates our dog's behavior toward us. And these same systems, the same oxytocin systems, are activated when dogs interact with us as between people who are in love. They see the same systems light up. And again, the researcher, Dr. Gregory Burns, who did the fMRI studies I just spoke about, he wanted to know if his dog Newton, who had passed away, loved him the way that he loved Newton. And so he wrote a book and did his own research, and the book is called How Dogs Love Us. A neuroscientist and his adopted dog decode the canine brain. So the research is there and we should be using it. Also, Dr. Clive Wynne researched the genetic expression that is possibly responsible for a dog's exaggerated interest in people, which we call in science biddability. So, and you can read about his research in his book, Dog is Love. That's the title of his book. And you can also add Dr. Brian Hare to the increasing list of researchers who talk about dog and love together. So let me just mention, I can't leave without mentioning Jock Panksepp, the American pronunciation. He has an emotional systems model, and that is featured in the emotional needs section of the book. He developed the neuromodulator pathway theory of emotions. And Panksepp's research shows us that the environment, behavior, and emotions can't be isolated from each other. They are working together. And so he talks about both the appetitive and the aversive emotional systems. He coined the term affective neuroscience, that's spelled with an A. Affect in psychology basically means devoted to the study of feelings, more or less. So this this idea of empathy toward our dog extends to separation anxiety, which is a big problem and it's a big issue in rescue for pet parents, and it's critical into the development of children and of dogs. And I know, Roman, that you've done a lot of work in this area, so perhaps you could speak on that for a bit. Talk about attachment and abandonment. And
Well, it seems that because let me grab my ADD brain together. um, the first thing that I notice with dogs, they do attach to things. They attach to people, they attach to toys. It seems like the whole dog family system is attachment based. So the young dog is being born, he attaches to the mother, and it attaches then to the siblings, and that attaches then to friends and playmates. So it's not different than a family system. So as children attach to their secure attachment to their mother, dogs attach to their mother. The first thing they search for is mother smell, mother temperature, mother care. And we see those parallels. And we see if we take puppies away too early from that mother, then that experience and that emotional development of being cared for and being safe within is falling apart, which means this first experience, the first trauma that happens is with this disconnect of the secure attachment relationship, and it's not developed. And we see dogs who come from kennels and come from breeding facilities, they never feel safe. They don't know how to create relationships. They don't know how to pair up with other mates. They get overly stressed. They get social anxieties. It's no different than children. Children will be removed too early from their families, end up in the system and struggling to build relationships, struggling to work in a job, struggling to stay in the relationship. These are those parallels. We cannot just look away from it. And it comes in together with a word that we say parenting. We are surrogate parents. The moment those dogs are being removed from the family, we have to become the substitute family members. Now, how do we become the family members in the extensions? Even though we've forced dogs out of that relationship, which is the first trauma, how can we heal that trauma is by start creating the same attachment relationship they supposed to have with their parents, sometimes they never had. And so we have to do this healing process, teaching them from scratch. What does it mean to feel safe? What does it mean to have abundance of care? What does it mean to be loved? And I understand how science and trainers and dog owners, in parentheses, how they struggle with the concept of love. Because dogs are not humans, therefore you cannot love them. And if they're not humans, how can they love you back? Well, from the theosophical perspective, from a theoretical perspective, and a philosophical perspective, dogs have unconditional love because they don't have that part that we have, which is ego, and we dilute that love into smaller pieces. The dog loves you unconditionally. As long as you provide the safety, he loves you. He loves everything. He loves the tree. I haven't seen a dog cutting a tree down. I've seen dogs chewing on leaves, but they're not destructive. They love the nature. They are part of the nature. They represent the nature. And so our love towards the dog is basically help them fulfill those needs, and they perceive that as love.
right, so my experience at the Humane Society, the shelter, for 5 years, where I volunteered and worked. I put my master's degree on the side burner. In fact, it was on a back burner because I was struck every day by the intensity of what I was experiencing there. Um, all the work I do today is based upon my experiences at the Humane Society, really. When I think about, why did I go into animal welfare? Um, and the abandonment issues that I saw in the eyes of the dogs that I talked about in the dedication, um, impressed upon me that I needed to look into separation anxiety as it applies to dogs and styles of attachment and abandonment. And it's there. Researchers today believe that the same type of attachments are formed between a dog and their primary caretaker, as you mentioned, Roman, that we take on that role when we take on the responsibility of homing a dog. So I don't like the term rehoming. Um, and I do understand that sometimes people have circumstances and situations in their lives where they cannot continue to take care of their dog. But the term rehoming just makes it sound, you know, innocuous and sort of a neutral, nice term. Whereas I found working at the Humane Society that when you relinquish your dog, number one, you relinquish all rights to information about what becomes of that animal. And most people, they think they're rehoming their dog. They never get told what the euthanasia statistics are for that facility. And even though I worked in a no kill, there were behavior problems. That no kill does not apply necessarily to dogs with behavior problems or medical problems, or dogs that need long-term care. So it's not fair to the pet parent to not understand what happens when they rehome a dog. So if someone does need to break that bond, that seriously strong bond, going back to the pet parent idea, that like 2 to 3 year old child has with their parent, that is the dog has with their the person who transitioned into that role. If that bond is going to be broken, it's going to be traumatic. It is. And the experience at a shelter, I'm so grateful for the work that shelters do. But even at the very best of shelters, it's not a home. It's not a home. And so there are multiple factors going into the trauma induction that you deal with, Roman. And in the book, I talk about how to treat separation anxiety, how to prevent it, ideally, and how to treat it. And the doggy enrichment land is an important feature in the book. It's a safe enclosure, a happy environment, not imprisonment, but you condition it so that it's a favorite place. Even, you can keep the dog on the outside and put all the goodies on the inside. So the dog wants to get in there to get the goodies, So, I mean, there's a lot of things that being an intelligent, competent, curious, force-free dog trainer and behavior consultant that we can do to turn things in the direction that we would like them to go. So a doggy enrichment land is just that. And once you get the doggy enrichment land set up, you can practice frequent separations while you are at home, starting there. The treatment plan in the book relies on scientific citations from both the classic counter conditioning and desensitization literature, and the benefits. It speaks about the benefits of using food for separation anxiety, just as we do use food in other types of training, because research shows that using food in conditioned emotional responses works. Of course, you can't pair the food leaving the house. Then the food comes to predict that you are leaving the house. But there are smart ways to use food, and I explain how to do it and I provide both the classical and contemporary scientific evidence, that supports it. so yeah, that attachment, abandon versus abandonment, um, trauma is it's critical in our dog in us understanding this and knowing how to help our dogs to adjust to live happily in our boxes in our little human world.
I I love your chapter about separation anxiety. I want to help people make sure they understand that the only way the dogs as puppies stay in the den, and I want to note the dogs are not den animals. Okay, just like people are not hospital animals because they are born in a hospital. So dogs remain put in place because they are afraid of wolf. So fear in that case makes come up as natural separation anxiety, and the dogs being quiet and not moving and until the mother returns from hunting. So separation anxiety is being healed. The natural separation anxiety is being healed by food reward by the end of being patient and staying put in your place and not making any noise. Because over the generations, the only one who survived is the one who went quiet in the den and didn't make a peep until mom returned. And of course, trauma makes a big factor because we forget to feed the dogs. We assume we're going to be back in time. We forget the dogs are being trapped in a kennel. We forgot the dogs don't have access to food. And even if we're back, we're not feeding them. The food is not a reward for waiting. And so it becomes a problem. So really appreciate, especially because I work a lot with separation anxieties and fears and traumas. This is a great reference book for all of you guys who are professionals out there to read through it, understand each individual sentence. Don't skip a sentence because you think you know it. Ask, Google, research, why is Linda referring to that particular word? There's a meaning. Every word has a meaning. She tries to really keep this short. So don't shorten even more than that because you're not recognizing what the issue is. And I know there are several books out there about separation anxiety. Some of them come from medical perspective. Some of them come from punishment perspective. But I would like you to listen to your guts. And healthy guts and well-fed guts feel better. And our gut system and our digestive system is the source of well-being. And I also recognize that you also talked about that. So I don't want to go too further. Catherine, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I shut up
I
now.
do. I've been like chomping at the bit. So I've been trying to keep myself from over you, Robin. So sorry. We talked about attachment and rehoming or relinquishing and how the abandonment can impact a dog's emotional state. But I'm also curious about that insecure attachments that can be going on in the home that is a precursor to a dog being abandoned. And I'm curious about how pet parents can heal that attachment so that it can become more of a loving bond and secure attachment with their animal so they can be able to keep their dog in the home. So I think that that's really important that I want to kind of get your perspective on, Linda, is how people can heal that relationship and what's important for that.
Well, it's a combination of that pet parent child type relationship, that unconditional love, the lessening of expectations on, on the one side of the coin, and establishing a secure bond so that we don't get all the various iterations of insecure bonds. And on the other side, it's practicing um, making, it's practicing the techniques that are laid out in the book step by step, the frequent separations which I mentioned while you're at home, learning about the doggy, setting up a doggy enrichment land, and also um, desensitization and counter conditioning are, the primary uh, research foundational techniques that are used. They are in treating phobias, the serious fears, perhaps irrational fears. It doesn't matter if it's rational. If you just going to the bathroom and your dog is crying on the other side of a door, you're like, I'm right here. The irrationality of the fear doesn't matter. It's the experience of the victim of attachment disorder that's important. So understanding, what is going on and how you can baby step your way toward wellness, toward emotional wellness is critical. Um, so, there's that practice of the techniques, but on the other side of that coin is establishing that secure bond so that you don't get there. Also, when you first bring a puppy home, well, you start with researching the breeder. Like, what is the breeder doing in terms of attachments? Is that puppy like meeting like outside people, or is that puppy just confined to the family members in that breeder's family? Like, how many experiences independent, it's balancing proximity, closeness to the pet parent, and independence. And so it's about building that
Mm.
in baby steps. So when you bring that puppy home, you don't, you want to take your puppy with you a lot. You want to, in the socialization chapter talks about that. So you want a highly socialized puppy. Um, if you're able to accomplish that. But if you have a rescue dog, then there are other chapters where you're going to have different problems to deal with. But so when you bring that puppy home in terms of separation anxiety, you're going to start. Yes, you're going to take your puppy with you to a lot of places, or your new rescue dog. But then you're also going to have a routine where you have built in alone time as a part of the routine. Nothing, it's not a punishment. It doesn't feel like a punishment. It's like downtime, it's rest time, it's alone time. And so you build that independence proffering into your lifestyle with your dog. I just wanted to talk. I hope that that helps um, give a bit bigger picture about how all of these things tie in. And that's what's so beautiful about it. It's this puzzle, and it's like, oh my God, one thing, the pet parent, the unconditional love, the attachment, the bonding, the essay, and then of course aggression comes. We look at aggression problems in the same way.
Yeah, and Linda, thank you for kind of clearing that up and kind of giving a really good picture of what pet parents can do now if they're struggling with particular social emotional attachments with their dogs, because that's so powerful for them to have those tangible pieces so that they can put that into practice. And the other thing that comes up is kind of circling back to the idea of expectations. So when we bring a dog into our home, sometimes we might think that the dog is going to love petting. They're going to love to be doing all these things that we think all dogs, because we've all had dogs, love to do. And what's so important for pet parents to recognize and be flexible with is seeing every individual dog as being an individual. And so how can pet parents recognize that their dogs have a choice and give consent?
Right. So, when we look at the cognitive needs block of the hierarchy, we're going to start looking at some of the more cutting edge ideas that are coming about, that more emphasis is being put on. So we want to teach our dog we want to teach our dogs to make good choices so that those good choices become habits. Um, so, and we do that. Develop these good habits through reinforcement, but we need to positive reinforcement. But we need to be careful that we're not ignoring our dog's needs if we're providing differential reinforcement, for example. So we need to fill the need that the behavior is expressing, because behavior is an expression of needs. So we need to fill that need while we try to find an equally pleasing or more pleasing behavior for the dog, and not just to ignore the behavior. Ignoring is out. Sorry. It there is some place for it, but it is not a primary technique that we use in force-free training, because there are better ways. Ignoring is, when we feel what, if we, and I love your analogies, Roman, and I love bringing it back to humans, because how do you feel when you're ignored? When you're trying to get attention, and someone just completely ignores you, like, how does that feel? And what does that do to your relationship with that person? you know so we don't want to just ignore the behavior and replace the need that the behavior is expressing with food. So and so see Andrew Hale on that and Beyond the Operant, by the way. Otherwise it's sort of a trick. So again, emotional needs come before training on the hierarchy. Oops. Right on my desk. Hey. Emotional needs, training. So first, the lack of control is a huge stressor. There's mountains of literature about this, and we control all of our dogs' resources. Actually, our dogs are our captives. And so, we do, if, we can learn to control behavior by manipulating resources. So in fact, it's easy if you just give it some thought. However, we want to give back some of that control. Let our dogs make choices. I mean, you don't have to walk where you want to walk all the time. Let your dog choose where to talk. You might find it fun, like, well, that's pretty interesting. So, lots of Snifari time. You don't have to use a short leash to teach leash walking. And indeed, it can be counterproductive, because first and foremost, your dog needs to feel safe. And in order to feel safe, your dog needs to be able to maneuver, and that is to run away from something that appears threatening. So, that would be the natural way that a dog would, for example, greet another dog, is to come in around the side and to do some observation and to slowly close the distance. This tight leash, they know they're trapped. They're trapped by you. They're trapped by that leash. It is a barrier, not only a barrier frustration, but it's a serious safety risk for your dog. So let's not put them in that position. So having control over our environment is something we study in the field of psychology, and it's called the locus of control. And it refers to the degree to which our dogs, in this case, feel control over the outcome of events, rather than feeling helpless. And we know where that can lead. So having choices and giving consent is critical to emotional well-being in our dogs. So we're now including consent practices very often in progressive husbandry techniques, or we want to include consent in any potential stressful situation, particularly those that involve touching your dog. As you mentioned, Catherine, I mean, we do tests, like you pet your dog, then you stop. does your dog kind of come in for you and solicit affection, or does your dog like walk away? Does your dog really enjoy that? Or are you just doing it because it serves your needs? So
Mm.
also, in approach, you should always let dogs approach you. Like just coming up to them is not a good idea. You need consent. We don't invade other people's space um, like that. Just like right up in their face and give them a big hug. Maybe that person is like, back off. Like, you know, I don't like that. And so, with dogs, they have certain ways of communicating, and one of the only ways they can communicate with us is through body language and using their teeth. So, like, don't put your dog in a position where your dog is likely to feel threatened. And so the same thing with other dogs, as I mentioned. So we want to give our dogs both environmental control, as Roman mentioned, and situational control. So the thing is, and you know, I, I studied this stuff so I could put it in a book. So, and I found quotes from scientists that tell us that often when our dogs express dissent, we ignore it.
100, Linda. 100. Say that again for the people in the back.
I can't pronounce her name. Yeah, you know. So yeah, they don't like something. We're like, whatever, you know, or we pay like no attention to it, and we just keep doing what we're doing. We don't even. We're not
Or
aware.
they take it personally.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, bingo. Thank you for that. That it. That's it.
Yeah.
I
People,
totally agree with you. I see when I do work on behavior healing, trauma healing, behavior healing, one of the factors that we look for is safety, trust, control, role, and attachment. So how does my dog feel safe in the situation he is? Does the dog trust me to walk him through the process? Does my dog feel in control of what's going to happen to him? Is in control of the environment? And what's the role of the dog into that situation? Is he a prey? Is he a predator? Is he being the victim? What's going on here? And then what's the attachment relationship to the situation? There's no way you get out of trauma if you don't put those 5 steps into function. And I think you say that in that book, not in this particular term that I use, but it's still the same. And the first thing I do is, if you want to have a relationship with your dog, if you want the dog to feel safe, if you want the dog feel in control, how do you meet your dog's needs? And my second question is, have you read that book? No? Let's sit down, let's talk about it. Okay, I wanted to wrap
Right
up a
on,
little bit.
Roman.
one more moment.
Sure.
So you want to give your dog the choice to say yes or no. That choice should be allowed, wherever it's within safety parameters and within reason, of course. But when you do that, you have to be ready to take no for an answer.
Yes.
Yeah. But as
Say
people,
that
as
again
dog parents,
louder, Linda.
we have options to have the dog choose yes instead of no, because we prepare the dog to make an easier choice to the yes rather than to the no. It's a parenting skill.
Well, thank you both for hosting the first podcast on the book. Hopefully, we'll be back with more. Um, and so I just like to wrap up now. Uh, I'll give you both a chance to give some parting thoughts. Catherine.
Yeah, I think this was really enlightening. I think you fleshed out, whatever the term is, some of the key concepts that pet parents and pet professionals that are serving those pet parents can really do to build those relationships and what to look for, Roman. I think you touched on that too. I think a lot of times in the dog training industry, we're just looking at how to get a certain behavior. But in order for our pet parents and their dogs to have a better relationship underpins all of that. And I think recognizing and highlighting how attachment to our dogs is it like underlies everything within the dog training world. So thank you, Linda, for sharing your insights and your knowledge, because it's so necessary for the industry.
I have not much to say. You guys said it. Just wrapping up. First of all, I think Linda is being justified here to say we need to stop animal abuse, and we need to stop this. I don't even have the word, making it look nicer, of abusive training. It is the fact. It's scientifically proven. No matter what your name you put on it, instead of saying credit, you're saying a loan. Instead of loan, you say leasing, and all these different words to kind of camouflage it. No, it is what it is. If a dog feels scared, it's abusive, period. And we don't need that. The other thing is we need to recognize the psychological and emotional needs of the dog. And we need to give that a name, and we need to give that a structure. And people need simplified solutions. And they don't need power to help the dog, and they don't need to be heavier than the dog, and they don't need more force to help a dog. You need to step into your parenting skills. You need to get back into your parenting power. And parenting power doesn't mean power and force. It means education and knowledge. And the more education knowledge you have, the more education knowledge you can transfer to your dog. Linda, you have the right to close.
Yes, well, you've said it all, and right, Roman, you mentioned safety, and yeah, it is on safety is and under biological needs, but security, emotional need is there as well. So, you have just framed it a little bit differently, but I knew when I, was looking at moderators, I knew that you two were like, you're like, yeah, okay, we are on the same page, and we are going to win this. I am convinced now. However, we're working in an unregulated field. So there are landmines out there. It's going to be a struggle, it's going to be a challenge. And I hope that I have offered some help in writing, what is a rather long book. It's, oh my gosh, it's 315 pages, but that's why I called it a handbook, so that you can put it up on in your dog. Oops, see, there's my dog library. In your dog library, and you can grab it and then just go to the index and find what you're looking for. Although, I encourage you to read it. But we need to stop animal abuse masquerading as dog training, and do that by recognizing also that, as Roman just mentioned, psychological and emotional health are every bit as important as physical health. So, on that note, I would like to thank the Do No Harm members. Oh my gosh. And all of the moderators and all of our supporters of the hierarchy of dog needs. all the trainers that I dedicated the book to that I cried about, because I know what it's like struggling as a trainer, clawing your way up the ladder, you know, even if you have credentials, it's a tough field, but we're on the right path, and I hope that my publishing the book at long last will make your path easier and make your life with your dogs easier and make, moreover, your dog's life easier.
Thank you so much. So
Thanks,
for you
Roman.
guys who are here all morning basically and supporting our cause or Linda's cause, and we're supporting Linda, so it's our cause. And all of you do not harmers, how can we reach you guys? Linda, how can we reach you if we need some support? Can people reach out to you?
Oh, how can you reach me?
Yeah, if some people have questions about the book.
Okay. So, well, I believe that this live is being recorded and that it's going to be a thread in the group. Is that right, Roman?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so I am technologically challenged. So if I can find the thread, I'll ask Roman where it is. If I can't find it. If you have questions, you can just write them and, just post in the group. Like, I watched the podcast and blah, 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 I have this question. you know that would get you feedback from any number of our moderators, but hopefully I will see it. Or if you ask a question in the thread, in the podcast thread, there'll be a chat there, Roman, right?
Correct.
Is there a chat there already?
Yep. There are a lot of questions. We can't even go over them, Elite, but as moderators, we definitely will answer the questions that you guys have.
Right, if people post those individually, but I will go through the thread. And that's what I'll do this weekend. Is I will try my best to answer any questions that members have posed in the thread for this podcast.
Right. And Catherine, how can people reach to you and how can you help them?
Sure. So they can set up a discovery call with me, which, they can find a time that's convenient for them and set aside the time to chat, and we can go from there. I can post my discovery call link in the thread after we're done with the call.
Yes, and Roman, you to please post your links, both Roman and Catherine and all of our moderators. But Roman and Catherine on this thread are excellent resources. Any pet parent would be fortunate to have an opportunity to work with them. I need the best moderate in the Do No Harm group because it's it's a 724 challenge. It's a tough job, and so I can vouch for them myself. They definitely know what they're doing, and they can help you. So please, you two, please put your link to your businesses in the thread.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay?
Thank you so much. And we made it again. So I see there's a lot of interest for more of these video chats and conversations and Q&As. We will discuss these options with Linda. I'm not promising anything on anyone's behalf. I'm just seeing there's a lot of need here. People like this person behind this book and a face behind this ideology. People like to associate themselves with something like they can see and they can feel, right? Not touching. And I really appreciate you, Linda and Catherine, for the questions and for the answers. And I love how widespread this group is. So we have Europe, we have Asia here, and I'm sure people will watch it in replay because it's still Saturday morning. Some people have some still work to do. So there will be a lot of more comments coming in. Plus, I will upload this video on YouTube. So we have that resource too. And yes, you can share it. And yes, you can please share it with your favorite group. Make sure you have the agreement of the admins in that particular group. You don't want to get booted by supporting do not harm approach. And maybe you want to add a little bit of comment why you think this is important to watch. Just don't share a link in the group. We don't like it either. And so also you can support Linda for her work, especially if you're a professional. And I think it's worth to support Linda, not only by supporting her by buying this book, but also supporting by sharing her book. And I'm writing a book and I'm far away from being finished, but I do send my clients to buy this book because I believe it supports my ideology. I have nothing to be ashamed of. Like, yeah, you know, read the book, but skip page 35. No, read the book. And I have a good consciousness that nothing is going to harm my process. Right. So thank you again, everyone. Any questions in the comments? There will be a lot of comments, so we're going to try to answer all the comments as the way we see that come in. I'm sorry we didn't answer the questions in that live event. I think Linda had to share that message, and I think that will be on the first burner. But we're going to hopefully do another one, answer other questions in the near future once Linda gets a little bit of breathing air after publishing her book and still working on stuff. Yes to the translations to other languages. Linda likely is working on that, and the book sales. Yes, go to your public library and says, hey guys, do you have this book? You know, you don't. Put it in your shelves like as quickly as possible so we have stopped that abuse of happening. Again, thank you so much, guys, and talk to you guys soon.
Bye.